This is the Check It Out podcast. Today is February 4th, 2014. This is Troy Swanson, Library Department Chair at the Moraine Valley Library. And I'm here with a special guest, Megan Waltman. Hello, Megan.
Hi.
Megan is part of our library family. Her mom actually is one of our librarians and has worked for us for about 8 years.
Yes.
Something like that.
She's been here for a while.
And Megan is a student and a graduate, an
Yes.
alumni,
Yep.
who has made it to Hollywood Week on American Idol. And all of us around here are cheering and very excited for Megan. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here and be part of the library family at Moraine.
So I wanted to talk a little bit today about some of your Moraine Valley connections and also to get maybe behind the scenes view of American Idol. So why don't we start a little bit about Moraine, because I know Moraine was part of your training and prep to go on to American Idol, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been singing for a long time, since I was about 9 or 10 professionally, like on stages. So prior to coming to Moraine, I did have a good bit of experience under my belt. And it took me a while to sort of get involved in musical things here at Moraine. But I took a class my first semester, American Popular Music, and Doug Brott was actually my teacher, and he was very, very, very good at giving all the information about the class. I loved that class. And sitting in my seat, I kind of was thinking, you know, I could spend a lot more time on each chapter just really getting the details of all this information. And that's kind of when I was like, you know, maybe pursuing this as more than just some performances as a real career became an option for me. And I asked him how I could get involved at Moraine, and he gave me some suggestions. And I actually ended up doing the Disney College program. So when I came back from the Disney College program...
And were you singing at the Disney College?
I was not, actually.
Oh, no. I didn't know that.
I was working at Splash Mountain. So everybody has to start from the bottom at a company like that. But I was not singing, but it was definitely a resume builder and taught me a lot of other things, interpersonal communication, things like that, that are kind of invaluable and you'll take with you throughout your journey, wherever you go. But when I returned from the college program, that's kind of when I started working with Erin Matante. At the time, she had a different last name, but she was the first vocal coach that I worked with here at Moraine, and she is a trained opera singer, so our styles couldn't be more different. But she was very focused on some of my bad habits, so she really wanted to try to correct some of them that you just kind of develop over time, especially singing commercial or pop music. So you the way that you produce the sound is very different from if someone who's singing an aria. So today I actually had a lesson with her, and she complimented me on some of the things that we have been working on over the course of time.
So you're not learning opera now?
I actually last semester did have to perform an Italian aria.
Nice.
She made me do it.
Cool.
But
so you're broadening your
yes,
scope.
definitely. And I definitely don't want to become a professional opera singer by any means, but being able to do that really, really harnesses the technique that I need for the music I love. And so working with Erin has really been helpful. She's helped me with mixing, breathing, belting, controlling. I have a problem with manipulating the sound with my jaw. There's just so many things that you don't realize because it's hard to watch yourself and really critique yourself if you don't have like a camera and watch every performance. So it's been really nice to have someone who knows the proper technique and won't force opera music on you, but will be able to help you implement the proper technique into what you're doing.
When they say that the voice is your instrument, I mean, just really thinking about that as an instrument and that technique that you apply. And
a lot of people, especially opera singers, they kind of stick their nose down at popular music, but she didn't do that at all, and really said, if this is what you want, I want to make sure you have a healthy sound, that you have the proper technique if that's what you're going to pursue. So it's really hard to find classically trained voice teachers that will be willing to help with popular music and Broadway music.
So I'm sure the music department right now is probably ecstatic with your journey on American Idol.
I just went in there, and I don't usually go in the office, but she had to copy some music for me, and all the people in the office were like, "Are you the American Idol girl?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, bye." So, I mean, it's exciting for sure.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know how many people knew, who I was and what I was able to do. So it's definitely nice that I have all this support from Moraine Valley for sure.
Well, I think all of us are proud. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Idol itself and the audition process. And I know, for the record, I think we should say there's certain things you can't talk about at this point because Hollywood Week's about to air tomorrow night.
So everyone's still really excited to see Hollywood Week is coming up this week. So there's some things that I can't necessarily talk about for Hollywood Week, but I can tell you a little bit about my Idol journey so far. As a lot of people know, you do have to audition for producers before you go to the judges. So this process started in July. And they didn't do auditions in Chicago, so I did have to drive to Detroit. And my summers are crazy busy. I had 5 jobs this summer. So I happened to have a free day. There was a miscommunication. Somebody thought I was unavailable, but I was available. So I thought I was going to sing at something. They scheduled somebody else, and I was like, I have a whole free day. What am I going to do? And I knew that they were in Detroit, so I drove from a gig that my band had at 2 o'clock in the morning. We got done, and I drove straight to Detroit. Registered at 6 a.m. and stayed at Ford Field until 7 p.m. Because I have to go through everybody. So by the time of the audition, it was about like 30 hours straight, and I was exhausted, but I think it was worth it. So
with the process, you always see the shots of everyone hanging out and waiting, and how does it communicate from being? I mean, the length of the day, obviously. They condense it into an hour or 2, so it's hard to feel that. But even like the relationships between other contestants, or how often you see people, like, is there any good behind the scenes juiciness that you can tell us? The real scoop? And I know you have to be careful what you can say.
Well, you were saying that, some of the contestants bond, and I think that that's definitely true because there is a process that we all go through. So depending on where you are in line and what number you have, it's really,
You're spending a lot of time
with people, and it's the flip of a coin. It's just kind of at random. So there were definitely Sarah Sherb. She was featured on the Detroit episode at the very beginning. She is someone who I became really, really close with. So sometimes, when they're showing some of the stuff, we text each other like, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? Or I think it was at the end of the Detroit auditions, she and I actually, they took us to a little spot with our tickets. And we were in one of the little boxes that they had divided, kind of dancing with our tickets, and she took a shot and sent it to me. And so it's just exciting for all of us because we can kind of be like, because we all know the behind the scenes, so we can talk to each other about it, but we can't necessarily, talk to the rest of the community about it. So I think that that's something that's really important. People kind of forget that. That's how a lot of, back in the day, a lot of artists worked with each other and created new sounds as somebody sounded completely different and they wanted to partner with them. And I think that that's really cool for young artists like myself to learn from other artists who have a completely different sound, maybe
build those connections.
Yeah, and everybody has their strengths. So I might do something completely different than Sarah, but she might be better at one portion of it. So I really like the fact that during the audition process, you do bond and learn and grow with each other. So.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
So I have to ask about the audition in front of the judges, right?
Yes.
Like that, I would be in trouble if I didn't ask that. So what is that like to walk in this year? They're putting people in that little booth thing.
The chamber.
Right?
The chamber was new this year, and I didn't really know it existed until we were about to go in, and they were like, all right, this is the chamber. And as it has been mentioned in some articles and stuff, I did audition in 2009, so I had gotten to the judges before when they were in Chicago that year. But this year, everything is completely different. So a lot of the expectations and some of the stuff I knew was very different. So I did have a little bit of preparation or thinking about what I had gone through in the past to have a frame of reference for what was going to happen. But like I said, it was very different because season 13 is like I said, very different from a lot of the other seasons.
So you walk in.
Yes, it's very nerve-wracking. I get in the chamber and you're kind of secluded from everybody else, which is nice and scary at the same time because you don't have everybody practicing their songs and all these different notes and melodies in your head, but you're also completely isolated, so you can't have one more person give you a pat on the back and say good luck. So I mean, I don't know if I was if it made me more nervous or it made me more comfortable. I'm not sure, but it was nice to have to have that moment to myself for sure. So I didn't, worry about my family being out there or anything else that was happening behind the chamber walls.
Center yourself.
Yes. And I did a couple little breathing exercises, make sure you have everything you need before you start that kind of audition. So the chamber light turned green, and when it did that, you knew that you were supposed to go in. And the judges were actually still discussing the previous contestant that had just gone through. It was Paris. She had auditioned right before me, Paris. And so I just kind of awkwardly stood there for a couple seconds because I knew I was supposed to go in, but they were still talking to each other, and just kind of like, oh, hi. So they like apologized. They were like, sorry. And I believe Harry was the first person to speak to me. And at this point, because none of us had really seen Harry as a judge yet, or nobody just meets Harry Connick Jr., so we didn't really know what to expect from Harry. And he was the first person to speak to me, and he asked me what I did, and I told him the different jobs that I have, and they seemed to be really impressed with my work ethic. And Jennifer Lopez kind of said, that's the performer's life when you think about it. She was like, if I sat and looked, I technically have like 10 different jobs, but when you're a performer, one job is 5 hours a week, the next job is 10, so combined they create a full-time job, but you do have to manage all the different things that are going on. So they were asking me about my jobs, and Harry made a strange little Harry comment. As you've seen, he's kind of the curveball this season. So I won't repeat what he said, but it was basically, how do you keep up with 5 jobs? So then after that, they asked me to sing, and I sang The Trouble with Love Is by Kelly Clarkson. Nice. And she's definitely my favorite. She's the one who inspired me to start singing in the first place when I watched her on the show. So I had to pay
like a tribute.
Yes, pay tribute to Kelly.
Nice.
And the first person to speak after I sang was Jennifer, and she kind of like slammed her hands down and was like, "Oh my gosh, I did not expect that out of you." And I mean, it's so weird to watch people's reactions to what you're doing. And so Jennifer always makes faces, and you can read her usually the easiest, and she was making like the eyebrow raises like, okay. And she seemed to really like it, and Harry seemed to like it, and Keith was the most difficult to read. He didn't really have any over-the-top reactions or anything, and so I was hoping that he liked it, but you couldn't really tell. And they asked me to sing another song, so I sang just a little bit, a tiny bit of Something's Got a Hold on Me by Etta James. And they had obviously, they decided that they didn't really need to hear much else, but I think it was partially because of some of the restrictions they have with songs. But right after that, I don't really remember them being like, all right, let's vote. Yes, yes, yes. I don't remember that happening. I think J-Lo looked at Harry and looked at Keith and went, yes, and then held out the ticket. And so prior to going into the audition, before you go in, the producers kind of prep you a little bit and express concern about, approaching the judges if they don't want you to. So I was a little apprehensive about getting the ticket, and I was like, am I allowed? And she was like, girl, how else are you going to get to Hollywood? So when I got the ticket, Jennifer handed it to me, and Keith actually stood up and gave me a hug. So I was like, well, I didn't know what he was thinking until now, but
good sign.
So it was a really rewarding experience.
You were excited and screaming.
Nothing but positive things. And I told Keith when right after I got my ticket about a little story, because my mom has become a big Keith Urban fan.
Oh, nice.
So he was talking to me a little bit about that, but and then I went out there.
And she got to meet him.
She did not get to meet him.
No.
She did not get to meet him, but right after I got the ticket, I was going back out to my family, and I just kind of, it's like almost time stops, and you're just really in that moment realizing what just happened. Well,
especially after making it to the judges once before.
Right.
It's a lot of investment of years and time and kind of validation, I'm sure, too, right?
Exactly. And you're so caught up in, talking to them, and then you take a step back, and again, you're in that chamber before you walk out. and it's this like solitude, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like this is what I wanted and this is what happened, and that couldn't have gone any better.
Right.
And so a lot of people like hide their tickets or like make a big deal about showing their tickets, and I didn't do that at all. Like I completely forgot that I had that they were expecting me to show them that I had a ticket,
but
or
they
didn't have
know
a ticket.
What just happened.
Yeah,
right?
they weren't in the room with me. They didn't know what happened, and I was just thinking that they did.
Right.
And so I walked out, and they were all staring at me, and I was like looking at them, and then I was like, oh yeah, I got a ticket. So yeah, it was really exciting, and
cool.
Everyone knew how badly I wanted to succeed this season of American Idol. So I think it was a very surreal moment when I walked out with the ticket, and they were all just very happy that it went so well.
Well, I always think that one of the great things about being just at this college and working with so many people, most of our students are still traditional age students, even though we have obviously many returning adults. But you're with people that are, really growing up into themselves, and becoming that grown-up person that they're going to be. And I was just wondering, when trying out in 2009 versus 2014, like if you feel like that maturity, the experience, like you've walked down that road a little bit further, like if that you think was part of your success in this, like you have to have grown so much more from where you were.
I think that it's definitely important for any performer to really not get frustrated about critiques, but to take them and listen to them. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's hard, you're doing something that you're putting your heart and soul to, and someone's sitting there saying, you could do this, you could do that, you need to do this. And as a person, as just a human being, you immediately want to get like defensive and be like, well, blah, blah, blah. But you can't do that. And sometimes if you take a step back and listen to it yourself, you would agree. Mm-hmm. If it weren't you and you watched somebody else, you would have those same opinions. So that is, I think, one of the most important things that I learned is to really take critiques and do what they say. And make little adjustments, and that is, especially some of the feedback I got in 2009, it was all positive, but they definitely gave me things that I could work on. Mm-hmm. And I did, and Aaron helped me with a lot of those. It was a lot of technique work that I really focused on, and it helped me for sure, because nerves will take a toll on you, and so if you're not as prepared as you can be to go into that, and you forget the lyrics, or you let your nerves get the best of you, it can take a toll on the entire audition. So I think that really having that preparation was so helpful this time for sure.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, out of how many people auditioned?
I think they said 75,000 auditioned.
How many made it to Hollywood Week?
214. The last episode they said that there were 214 contestants.
So we're all excited to watch this week and next week to see how Hollywood Week goes. But I think all of us are just super proud, and I'm sure the music department, like I said, is ecstatic. But knowing your mom and knowing you for so long, I think we're all like, you're already our American Idol.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been really humbling to see the support that has just been, poured out these past couple days and weeks. Mm-hmm. The community here, my grammar school, Tinley Park is where I'm from. So I've just gotten all these amazing, kind words spoken to me, and not just about my voice, but people think I'm a good person, so that matters, I guess, to a lot of people. And I am very grateful and humbled by all of these lovely things people are saying.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you for your time, and I'll thank all of our listeners for listening, and good luck.
All right, thank you very much.